tomorrow when the president visits East Palestine?
No, it's a good question. Obviously, we'll have more to share later today as we put out the daily guidance. As you know, and I've stated this before, the president, as you all know, is going to go to East Palestine, obviously, but he is going at the invite of the mayor. The president's going to hear directly from the people of East Palestine. This is a trip that he has been wanting to make, but wanted to make sure that it was the right time to do. Obviously, when the derailment happened, the federal agencies were on the ground within hours, and many of them have continued to be there, whether it's the EPA or FEMA. And so that's what you're going to see. We'll have more details to share later today, but you will see a president that goes out there, whether it's a red state, blue state, urban America, rural America, to hear and make sure that he is a president for all, especially when they're dealing with this awful event that happens specifically in this community. And look, one of the things that we've heard from this community, they do not want to be just known for one event, right? But at the same time, we have to be there for them. We have to hold Norfolk Suffolk accountable, which is what we're going to do. The Department of Transportation obviously continues to do that, and he will be on the ground and he will hear directly from the community. Get on, Jerry.
Karine, so I just wanted to follow up on the Kansas City Chiefs shooting.
Yeah.
Does the president, he's often gone to the site of shootings, is he planning to go to Kansas City to sort of grieve with the people there in person? And
well, what I could say is obviously, let me just say, and I've already offered up our prayers for the families who lost their loved ones, and to the victims obviously as well. Many of them are children. And it is one thing I can say for sure is the president is devastated by this and also frustrated. It is frustrating to continue to talk about and for him to put out a statement, or for me even, and I'm sure for all of you, to cover another shooting. And this gun violence epidemic is really destroying our communities. It's having an effect on our communities, and he is going to do everything that he can to continue to move forward with protecting our communities, but Congress needs to act. Congress needs to act. This is a president that has taken 24 executive actions on this particular issue. Obviously, we passed a historic piece of legislation in a bipartisan way just about 2 years ago. It is time for Congress to do more. We need them to do more. As it relates to travel to Kansas City, I don't have anything to read out to you at this time or anything to announce, but yes, it's important to go to the communities when it's needed, obviously when they have had such tragedy. But what is also important is Congress needs to act. This cannot continue. We cannot continue to see this epidemic. As I mentioned, several children were part of this shooting. When you hear that gun violence is the #1 killer of our kids here in the U.S., that's not okay.
On that issue,
is the president planning to speak to the victims or the families of the survivors? And then I have another quick question.
No, totally understand. Look, don't have anything to read out on that. The president is keeping regularly updated by his team. Obviously, they're going to continue their investigation on the ground, and we're offering all support needed to law enforcement and also obviously the community. But again, this is something, it is incredibly frustrating. It is incredibly frustrating. We need to see more here. We need to see more from Congress. Okay.
Sorry, can you also confirm Dalip Singh is returning to the White House?
To who?
Dalip Singh, the...
I can't confirm that. I don't have anything for you on that. Yeah, you might know more than I do, actually.
Quick Kansas City clarification.
We couldn't hear what she said. What did she ask?
Dalip Singh, she asked if Dalip Singh has come back to the White House. I just don't have anything. Or is coming back. I just don't have anything for you. Yes, I don't have anything for you.
Quick clarification on what you said about Kansas City at the beginning, because I've heard from a few people who were watching live as you said it. And according to the transcript, you said 2 people have died. The reports are 1. Did you know?
Well,
do you have different information?
I did not know. I have different information. From what I've been told from the team, the number that we have is 2. And I can go back to make sure, but that is what I've been told from the team.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a different...
Totally understand that. Totally understand, and I'm happy to make sure to clarify that for all of you. But that is what I was told from my team. Okay, no problem.
So tomorrow marks 1 year since the president's last physical. So can you give us any type of sense of timing for when the next physical will be?
It will happen. I don't have a timeline for you. It will happen.
End of month?
I don't have a timeline. It will happen, and like we have done in the last 2 years, it will be transparent. We will have a memo for all of you. I just don't have anything for you at this time. It will happen.
And last year, you gave us about a 2 weeks notice. On February 1st, you told us it would be February 16th. So should we anticipate that you're going to give us that amount?
I will double check with the team on this. I don't have a timeline for you at this time, so just don't want to get ahead of what's going on, obviously, with the team. So I just don't have anything more to share at this time. But he will have one. He will have it. He will have obviously a physical. We will be transparent, just like we have been in the last 2 years. And we obviously will provide his health records and all of the information as we've done in the last 2 years. So, okay.
Yeah, on Tuesday, President Biden came out and he said, "I'm not going to answer your questions today. I will answer them tomorrow and the day after."
Yeah.
What was he talking about?
Well, he was outside yesterday and he took questions from some of you.
And what about today?
Today, I don't have anything to share on his, beyond what you all know, don't have anything to add on his public schedule.
Okay, and at the risk of tripping over the Hatch Act.
Is that what I do, trip over the Hatch Act?
No, I'm about to all over it for you. Nikki Haley recently made a pronouncement about President Biden's near-term plans, and I'm hoping to get your response. I will quote what she said over the weekend at an event. Quote, "My bet is 30 days from now, I don't think Joe Biden's going to be the nominee. You're going to have a female president of the United States. It's either going to be me or it's going to be Kamala Harris."
I'm going to be very careful here. As you just stated, there is a Hatch Act. I am a federal employee. I cannot speak to Nikki Haley's, I don't know, magic ball that she may have or whatever it is that she's trying to predict. I'm just going to be super, super careful here. And the president is obviously, you know his intentions for 2024. I'm just going to be very mindful.
And he doesn't have any plans in the next 30 days to
The president.
exit stage left.
I'm not sure what crystal ball she's looking at, but it's not the one we have. I'm going to keep going. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, Kansas City Police Department has said that the shooting yesterday was a result of a dispute between that involved 2 juveniles. I'm just wondering, given the fact that Congress doesn't appear likely to act anytime soon, are there any tangible steps the administration can take to help keep guns out of the hands of teenagers, particularly given that these happen in kind of neighborhoods all over the country?
No, it's a good question. That's why we say we need to do more. That is exactly why we say we need to do more. We need Congress to do more. And I know your question about Congress. We have to put the pressure. We were able to pass a bipartisan piece of legislation that the president signed into law, obviously 2 years ago. So they took the first step. They need to take another step. There is executive action. There is obviously the Office of Anti-Gun Violence that we started here. It's a historic office. It's going to do everything that we can to help communities as they're dealing with these types of tragedies, to make sure we're moving faster and with the bipartisan law on the Safer Communities Act, make sure things are moving at a rapid pace. And so that is kind of the goal of the office, but we actually need Congress to do more. We have to, and we have to put the pressure on them to do that.
If I'm not mistaken, it's already illegal in most places for people under 18 to have guns. Is this an enforcement issue? Is it that law enforcement needs to step up to get guns?
I mean, look, there are many issues, right? Obviously, law enforcement issues. There are many issues that need to be addressed, and that's why federal legislation is important to this as well. But look, we're going to, I'm not going to get ahead of what the investigation is on the ground, what they're looking into, but it's a problem. It is devastating. It is devastating for, once again, to talk about a shooting. And it's not the only shooting that happened this week or yesterday even. And so we have to get Congress to act. We have to get Congress to make sure that they're continuing to do the work that they started, right? If you think about high-capacity magazines, that assault weapons, we need to ban those. Safe storage of guns, that needs to be something that we continue to require. Pass a national red flag law. We see those in certain states, but we need that on a national level. We need to enact universally background checks. All of those things that I just laid out as you're asking me this question is going to have an effect. And so we need to see those items dealt with by Congress. We need to see legislation. That is one of the solutions to reduce violence.
Missouri also has very lax gun laws statewide. Is this also an issue at the state legislative level that the state legislatures aren't?
We believe it. Yes, obviously, it's an issue at state legislative levels, but we've also lifted up some of these states that have done the extra actions, right, to make sure that their state is protected. But we also need Congress to act so we can see a national red flag law, so we can see a ban of assault weapons, right, so we can see high-capacity magazines also banned. These are all important. These are the things that I just listed out is going to save lives. Go ahead, April.
On that subject, as you're passionate from the podium about this, and this is an election year, do you expect the president to lean in to push Congress to act on gun legislation, gun reform, etc., leaning in on a consistent basis this year?
I mean, I think we've been pretty consistent on leaning in on what we're seeing in communities, gun violence that we're seeing in communities. We've been pretty consistent on calling out Congress. I mean, this is the second time this week that I've talked about a shooting. I think maybe even the third time this week that I've talked about a shooting that's occurred, whether it's an anniversary or an active shooting that just happened that day. And every time I'm at the podium, every time I talk about these devastating events, I talk about what the president has done, I talk about what he's been able to do with Congress, and I've talked about what are the next steps. And so, look, we have seen from Americans across the country, gun violence is an issue that is important to them. That's why the president took historic actions. That's why we have that bipartisan Safer Communities Act that's now law. Those things are important, but we need to do more. We need to do more. And that is for Congress to do more. Can you imagine the first 2 years of the president's administration, he did more than 24 actions? That's unheard of. But that also shows you how committed he is to trying to stop this epidemic. To stop. If that doesn't show commitment from this president, I don't know what else. And then having bipartisan conversation to pass the first anti-gun violence law in 30 years. In 30 years. I think the president has shown his commitment to this issue. What we need is Congress to take another step with us.
Is this a third rail issue during the presidential election season, you think, for the president?
A third rail issue in what way?
Meaning it's polarizing. The gun issue is it's a very sensitive issue. You have Republicans and the gun lobby who will go drastic, against him.
But look, we were able to do bipartisan legislation, right? Almost 2 years ago. We were able to do that. So obviously we have their attention. Obviously there's some care about what's happening in our communities. But we need to get them to take a step further, right? The gun lobbies cannot own this. Right. We cannot allow them to take away our rights or our ability to save lives. We got to save lives here. Children were part of what we saw yesterday. It's not okay.
And lastly, East Palestine, Ohio. The president's traveling there. I can't help but think about when Obama went to Flint, Michigan, and he drank water there. I can't help about Jackson, Mississippi, and some of the officials drinking water there. It's two totally different situations with the water, but are you expecting the optics of the president drinking water tomorrow?
I can say this, that the president has no concerns with drinking the water in East Palestine. The EPA is confident that the drinking water is safe. I'm sure some of you might remember when the EPA Administrator Regan was there one of the many times that he's visited. He drank the water there last year, so we have no concerns. Okay.
Thanks, Karine. The Senate's on recess. They're not back until the 26th. The House will go on recess until the 28th, and there's a government funding deadline coming up on March 1st. Does the White House want to see Congress cut recess short and come back and deal with spending bills ahead of that deadline?
I mean, you just said something that's very true. Like, the House decided to leave early, and they went on recess. That's what they decided to do. While there are important issues in front of them that they're just not dealing with. That's the House leadership. They made that decision. And it's kind of unfortunate. We need them to do the people's business. They have a really important national security supplemental in front of them that they should take up, that if put on the floor, it would get bipartisan support. There was a border deal a bipartisan border deal that came out of the Senate. The House leadership, Speaker more specifically, did not want to deal with it. He killed that bill. I mean, there are issues upon issues that they can deal with, and they refuse to. Instead, they went and impeached Secretary Mayorkas on a baseless, shameful way. And so, look, they left early. That's for them to speak to, but that's not what we want to see here. We want them to take action and actually move forward on behalf of the American people.
The Senate's out too. Are you concerned that they're cutting this too close to get
look,
government funding done? And how worried are you about a shutdown in early March?
We believe, we're always concerned about a shutdown, but we believe that Congress, both House and the Senate, obviously is their job to keep the government open. And we want them to do that. We want them to continue to keep the government open. It is their basic duty to do that. And so that's what we want to see. That's what we want to see. And they should act sooner, not later. Okay, John.
Thanks a lot, Karine. The other day you were talking about the crime rate across the country, and you were absolutely correct in saying how the crime rate has gone down in several large cities, New York and Chicago. But here in the district, it is not. There were 274 homicides here in the District of Columbia in 2023. That's the highest murder rate in more than 2 decades, since 1997. This is the president's home, at least a few days a week. What can he do personally about reducing the level of crime that we're seeing here in the nation's capital?
So let me just be very clear. All violent crime, not just here, all violent crime anywhere is completely unacceptable. We just want to make that very clear here. Every community in this country should feel safe, want to be safe, and so that's important. But I will say this, congressional Republicans, they don't seem to feel that way. And I say this because the president has taken action. From the first piece of legislation that he signed into law, American Rescue Plan, only Democrats voted for that. Republicans didn't vote for that. There was billions of dollars in that plan to deal with crime, to make sure there were more law enforcement in communities, to make sure that communities are able to keep families and Americans safe. They didn't vote for that. And we're talking about billions of dollars to federal, state, and local governments, and they didn't vote for it. And so, look. I just talked about the bipartisan gun safety legislation, where he was able to secure that. He took that very seriously, worked with, in that particular instinct, worked with both sides of the aisle to get that done, something we hadn't seen, again, in 30 years. Just last month, the Department of Justice committed more federal prosecutors, agents, and analysts to fighting gun crime in D.C. That matters. That's an action that the Department of Justice took. So, look, we need to do more. But the president has taken this very seriously. From the first couple of months of his administration, signing that American Rescue Plan and getting billions of dollars into communities was indeed incredibly important. Again, Republicans did not sign that. They did not vote for that.
So it's just a Republican issue, the large number of homicides that we're seeing here in the district.
That's not the question you asked me. You asked me, you asked me, what else can the president do? I laid out what the president did. I also called out Republicans for not doing enough, for not working with the president on trying to actually deal with an issue. That's what you asked me. That's what I answered. Go ahead, Ed. Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you, Karine.
Thanks, Karine. Two very different questions. One on China and the southern border. More than 20,000 Chinese migrants have illegally crossed the southern border in 2024, and the vast majority, according to the National Border Patrol Council president, have been single men of military age. What kind of national security issue is this, given China's hacking of U.S. infrastructure, the spying that they do, and the other aggressions? So
look, we take that very seriously, what's happening at the border. Everybody, we try to make sure that, as it relates to unlawful crossings, we certainly do everything that we can to make sure that we deal with that in a real way. Look, the DHS has fully mobilized their agency to deal with what's happening. We saw in January, a 50% drop from the month before of illegal entries. That matters. And so this is why, to your question, this is why it was really important to get the border security negotiation done. We understand there's a challenge at the border. We understand we need to do more. We understand that there's an immigration system that has been broken for decades. We had a bipartisan agreement We wanted Congress in the House to pass that, to move that forward, and they didn't. And they didn't. And so DHS is fully mobilized, is doing, since May of last year, they have been able to remove more than 500,000 illegal crossing. And so that is something that they're going to continue to work really hard. The president has added more CBP, more patrol officers on the border, but you know, we need more. We understand we need more.
And on the student loans things you did, the CBO director testified on Capitol Hill yesterday saying that the fiscal policy currently is unsustainable. Then he went on to say that the changes to the SAVE program for forgiving more student loan debt would cost taxpayers more than $100 billion. Why is it worth all taxpayers to burden this cost?
So look, I'm not going to get ahead of a CBO projection. I'm just going to be really careful here. What the president has said over and over again, and I just went back and forth with one of your colleagues on this, he wants to make sure that we give Americans a little bit more breathing room. That is important to this president. We understand what student loans do for families. It crushes families. It crushes Americans. So he wants to continue to do everything that we can to make sure that they have that breathing room. And so it's not going to stop him. And we believe the actions that we take, I think that's one of the questions that I got from your colleagues, we believe that it has legal standing so that we can move forward with them. But look, it is an important issue. It is an issue that Americans care about, and we're just not going to stop moving forward on them.
Thanks, Karine.
Okay, all right. Bye, everybody. I'll see you on the road, whoever's going to Ohio with us.